Most investors, especially beginners, buy stock because someone told them it will go up. But the problem is, they don't really understand what actually moves the stock price. The world's best investors don't just stare at charts all day, they watch what management is actually doing with the company. Because one of the biggest reasons stocks go up or down is something called corporate actions. Corporate actions happen all the time, and they directly impact whether you make or lose money. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 7 corporate actions you need to understand. Let's start with the right issue, something that can actually be a great opportunity if you understand it. Right issue is when a company offers existing shareholders the opportunity to buy additional shares at a discounted price. Usually, the offer price is below the current market price to make it attractive. For example, if a stock is trading at $100, the company might offer a rights issue at $80. So if you own the company's shares, you get the right to buy more at that discount. But depending on the situation, this can either be a fantastic deal or a trap, determined by why the company is raising money in the first place. Let me show you how this works with a simple example. Let's say you own 1,000 shares of a company. The current market price is $50 per share. The company announces a 1-for-5 rights issue at $40 per share. That means for every 5 shares you own, you have the right to buy 1 additional share at $40, which is 20% below the market price. So because you have 1,000 shares, you could buy 200 new shares at $40 each. That's $8,000. Since the market price is $50, you are instantly making a $10 profit on paper. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. The market price will usually adjust downwards after the issue to balance things out. After the rights issue, there are more total shares in the market. If you participated, you lowered your average cost. But if you didn't and didn't sell your rights, your existing shares got diluted. Your investment value dropped significantly because the market price will adjust to the new average price. So from your side as an investor, that's the downside. But again, depending on the situation, this can either be a fantastic deal or a trap, determined by why the company is raising money in the first place. Maybe they're raising capital because they're expanding, paying off debt, or funding a new project. So sometimes it's a good sign indicating growth and investment. But other times, it's a red flag signaling cash flow problems or financial trouble. But what if a company wants to make their stock more accessible without asking you to put in more money? What if they could make the stock cheaper for everyone without diluting anyone? That's where the next corporate action comes in. And this is where things get interesting. A stock split is when a company divides its existing shares into multiple shares. The most common type is a 2-for-1 split. Let's say you own 1 share of a company trading at $200. After a 2-for-1 split, you now own 2 shares, but each share is worth $100. So your total investment, still $200. Nothing changed in terms of value. So what is the reason behind this? The main reason is to make shares more affordable and accessible. When a stock price gets really high, say $1,000 or $2,000 per share, it becomes difficult for average investors to buy in. Splitting the stock brings the price down, which usually increases trading activity and attracts more retail investors. Let me give you a perfect real example. In July 2020, Apple announced a 4-for-1 stock split. At the time of the announcement, the stock was trading around $380. But listen to this. As soon as the news broke, investors went crazy. They rushed to buy in, driving the price up from $380 to nearly $500 in just a few weeks. Why? Psychology. Investors knew the split would make the stock more affordable later, but the hype alone created a buying frenzy. Then, on August 31st, the split happened. The $500 price tag was cut to $125. So, if you owned 10 Apple shares worth $5,000 before, you now owned 40 shares, still worth $5,000. The value didn't change, but the perceived accessibility drove the price up massively before the split even happened. So, stock splits usually mean good news. But what happens when a company does the exact opposite? The opposite of the stock split is reverse stock splits. Instead of getting more shares, your shares get combined and the price goes up. But unlike regular stock splits, which are usually positive, reverse splits are often a warning sign. Because usually, companies do this because their stock price has fallen so low that they're at risk of being delisted from the exchange. Major exchanges like NASDAQ and NYSE have minimum price requirements. If your stock trades below $1 for too long, you get kicked off the exchange. So a reverse split is often a desperate move to boost the share price and stay listed. Here's the real example. In May 2024, Nikola, the electric truck company, did a 1-for-30 reverse split. Their stock had dropped from over $60 in 2020 to under $1. They were about to get delisted, so they combined 30 shares into one. The stock went from around 70 cents to roughly $8. But then, here is the brutal part. The market isn't stupid. Investors saw this as a sign of weakness and kept selling. Within months, the stock crashed back down to below $1. This is why reverse splits are often seen as a red flag. They signal that a company is struggling and trying to avoid delisting or the stigma of being a penny stock. The market reaction is usually negative. Investors see it as desperation rather than strength. But yeah, reverse splits aren't always bad. Occasionally, a solid company with a low stock price will do a reverse split for strategic reasons. But more often than not, it's a sign of trouble. So if you see a reverse split announced, do your homework. Figure out why the company's stock price fell so low in the first place. But not all corporate actions are about survival. Some companies are so profitable, so cash rich, that they literally can't find better uses for their money. So what do? They start giving it away. This is the corporate action you may already be familiar with, but we're about to go way deeper. A dividend is when a company shares its profits with shareholders. Simple as that. You own shares, the company makes money, they make profit, and they share part of their profits with you. For example, let's say you own 100 shares of Apple. Apple's board of directors decides to pay a dividend of 50 cents per share. That means you're getting $50 deposited straight into your account. You didn't have to do anything. You just held the stock. This is what people call passive income. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all companies pay dividends. High-growth companies like Tesla or Amazon, for most of their history, they don't pay dividends. Why? Because they'd rather take that cash and reinvest it into growing the business, building new factories, developing new products, expanding into new markets. The logic is, if they can grow faster, your shares become more valuable anyway. On the other hand, mature companies with slower growth, they love paying dividends. Think like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. These companies have been around forever. They're not doubling in size every year, so instead of hoarding cash, they share it with shareholders. But if you actually want that dividend, there's one thing you can't ignore, which is the dates. There are 4 critical dates you need to understand with dividends, and if you mess these up, you might buy a stock thinking you'll get the dividend, but you end up with nothing. Let me break it down step by step. First, there's the declaration date. This is when the company's board officially announces the dividend. They'll say something like, "We're paying a dividend of $2 per share." This is just the announcement. You don't get anything yet. But the market usually reacts positively, especially if the dividend is higher than expected, because it signals that the company has strong cash flow and confidence in its future. Second, there's the ex-dividend date, and this is the most important date you need to know. The ex-dividend date is the cutoff. If you want to receive the dividend, you must own the stock before this date, not on this date. Third, there's the record date. This is typically the same day or the day after the ex-dividend date. On this date, the company looks at its records and makes a list of all shareholders who are eligible to receive the dividend. If you're on this list, you're getting paid. Fourth, there's the payment date, and this is when the money actually hits your account. This can be anywhere from a few days to a few weeks after the record date. So, what about the market reaction to these dates? In the days leading up to the ex-dividend date, you'll often see the stock price rise slightly. Why? Because investors who want the dividend are rushing to buy before the cutoff. This creates temporary demand that pushes the price up. But on the X date, the stock drops by roughly the dividend amount, and then what happens next depends on the company's fundamentals. If it's a strong company with consistent dividends, the price usually recovers and continues growing because long-term investors keep holding. If it's a weaker company, the price might keep falling because short-term traders just wanted the dividend and now they're selling off. Usually, companies that consistently pay and increase dividends tend to attract long-term investors, which supports the stock price. But please, don't chase dividends blindly, because a massive dividend from a struggling company is usually a dividend trap. It's like a store having a closing down sale. The prices are cheap, but the business is dying. Always check the fundamentals first. Anyway, every time a company pays you a dividend, you get taxed, and the company loses that cash forever. So some of the smartest companies figured out a better way. A way to return value to shareholders without triggering taxes, without losing cash permanently, and actually boosting the stock price at the same time. This is the buyback, and it's become one of the most powerful tools in corporate finance. Stock buybacks have become one of the most popular ways companies return value to shareholders, especially in the US, because it reduces the number of shares available, which increases earnings per share even if total earnings stay the same. Let's say a company has 1 million shares outstanding and makes $10 million in profit. Earnings per share is $10. If they buy back 100,000 shares, there are now only 900,000 shares left. You still own the same number of shares, but because there are fewer shares total, your ownership percentage just went up. With fewer shares outstanding, the earnings per share goes up too. Same $10 million profit, but now earnings per share is $11.11. Higher EPS usually attracts investors and pushes the price up. But why would a company buy back shares instead of paying dividends or reinvesting in the business? A few reasons. 1, they believe their stock is undervalued and it's a good investment. 2, they have excess cash and no better projects to invest in. 3, they want to return value to shareholders in a tax-efficient way. And 4, they want to signal confidence to the market. Apple is a perfect example. They've been buying back billions of dollars worth of their own stock for years. Each buyback announcement typically gives the stock a boost because investors see it as a sign of financial strength and confidence in future growth. But here's the catch. Not all buybacks are created equal. Sometimes companies announce buybacks just for optics, to make investors happy, but they don't follow through fully. Or they do buybacks when their stock is overvalued, which wastes shareholder money. Warren Buffett himself has mixed feelings about this. He says buybacks are great if the stock is undervalued, but stupid if the stock is overpriced. And you know what? He's got a point. In 2021, a lot of tech companies were doing massive buybacks when their stocks were at all-time highs. They were buying at the peak. Then the market crashed in 2022. Those buybacks looked terrible in hindsight. They basically bought high, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to do. But when done right, buybacks can be amazing for shareholders. Take Meta, Facebook's parent company. In late 2022, their stock had crashed from $380 down to around $90. Everyone was panic selling, but Meta saw an opportunity. In early 2023, they announced a massive $40 billion buyback. They bought their own shares while they were cheap. The result? The stock more than tripled over the next year. That is a smart buyback. So, as an investor, how do you know if a buyback is good or bad? Simple question. Is the company buying back stock because they have nothing better to do with the cash? Or are they doing it because the stock is genuinely cheap? That makes all the difference. So far, we've talked about companies managing their own stock, but there is one move that sends a shockwave through the entire industry. This brings us to mergers and acquisitions. This is when companies combine or one company buys another. And let me tell you, when this happens, your investment can change dramatically overnight. Let's start with the basics. A merger is when two companies combine to form a new entity. Both companies agree to the terms, and shareholders from both sides typically receive shares in the new combined company. While an acquisition is when one company buys another outright. The acquiring company takes control, and shareholders of the target company usually receive cash, shares of the acquiring company, or a combination of both. Here's a real example of a merger. In 2015, Kraft Foods and Heinz merged to form Kraft Heinz. Shareholders of both companies received shares in the new combined entity. The idea was to create synergies, cut costs, and dominate the food industry. So, how did the market react? Initially, positive. Investors believed the combined company would be more powerful and profitable. But long-term, Kraft Heinz struggled with integration and changing consumer preferences, and the stock underperformed expectations. Now for acquisition, this is where things get wild. When one company acquires another, the target company's stock usually jumps immediately. Why? Because the acquiring company typically offers a premium over the current market price to convince shareholders to sell. For example, when Microsoft announced they were acquiring Activision Blizzard in 2022 for $95 per share, Activision stock was trading around $65. Almost overnight, it jumped to near the offer price because investors knew they'd get that premium if the deal went through. If you owned Activision, you instantly made a roughly 40% profit just because Microsoft wanted to buy it. On the other side, what happens to the acquiring company's stock? It often drops. Why? Because the market worries about overpaying, integration challenges, culture clashes, and whether the acquisition will actually deliver value. When Facebook acquired WhatsApp for $19 billion in 2014, Facebook's stock initially dipped as investors questioned whether a messaging app was worth that much. In the long term, it turned out to be a smart move, but the immediate reaction was skeptical. The psychology here is fascinating. For the target company, it's almost always good news. You're getting bought at a premium. While for the acquiring company, investors scrutinize everything. Will this work? Are they overpaying? Can they integrate successfully? The market's reaction depends on the perceived value of the deal. If investors believe the acquisition will create synergies, expand market share, or unlock new revenue streams, the stock can perform well. But if it looks like a desperate move or an overpay, the stock suffers. So here's what you need to watch for with mergers and acquisitions. First, is the acquiring company paying a fair price or overpaying? If they're overpaying, that's bad for their shareholders. Second, will the deal actually get approved? Regulators can block deals if they think it creates a monopoly. Third, what's the strategic reason? Is this acquisition going to create real value, or is it just empire building by the CEO? So, we've covered the entire spectrum. These events can create massive wealth or destroy it in seconds. So, don't blindly follow the crowd. The winners are the ones who stop, read the news, and understand the why behind the move. But to truly judge if a corporate action is a genius move or a desperate one, you need to check the company's health first. Click this video right here to master financial statements and ratios. It's the only way to know if you're buying a healthy company or a dying one. I'll see you there.